Equipment set up to do an interview.
I think
it's been so long though that I'm having a hard time remembering where all the wires go.
The wire goes in hole.
Yeah, indeed it does.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We're going to have Dave sitting to my right. Yeah. Are we allowed to do that?
Well, he holds the copyright and he's going to be sitting here. So
yeah, we should ask him. So,
hey, it's time for Dopey. And I'm going to sing a song for you.
Okay. So,
maybe I should sit here.
Where?
Like this. So we can...
Perfect.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, then you can make eye contact.
Right.
It's like my wife always wants to sit right next to me at the dinner table, and I'm like, it's like we're eating on an airplane.
Yeah, then you got to look to the right.
Yeah. So I always insist on going around the corner, so we each sit on a corner of the table, right?
Oh.
And that, then we can look at each other.
Like this.
Yeah, because we have that big kitchen island thing.
Yeah.
So it's like if she sits at one end and I sit at the other, it's all fucking Henry VIII and shit, you know?
That's always the debate when you're out to dinner with a few people. You're like, are we going to sit across from each other?
Right.
Do we sit next to each other?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I prefer to sit across. Yeah. That's my personal preference.
Yeah, I do too, especially when we do the show. There was a few times where we were on the same side. When we were trying to film things. And it's always like I'm
awkward.
talking and I got to look to my right. You know, I like to look
and then our
the
heads are not in the frame.
Right.
You know.
We're going to get our video. Maybe we'll get some tips from Dave on doing a YouTube show.
I had to actually take I was going to video this, and then I realized I had no extra mini SD card because I couldn't find it. So I had to use the one from the video camera. Nobody wants to hear this, but it's been a very stressful week trying to put all this shit back together.
Yeah.
Because we had last month or two or 3 or 4, we had gone down to a small portable audio recorder that occasionally works, you know.
Lots of things got lost when we tried to save the show, you know.
Well, you know what? Streamline is good. You know what? I should probably start the recorder on this thing too.
Yes.
Here we go. This is it's all the fun shit from way back when is back.
Or all of the sounds. All right, we are boring the hell out of the audience.
All right.
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about 2 middle-aged suburban dads in their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Natx.
I'm Mike.
And boy, do we have a show for you today.
We really mean it today.
RMA. It's the crossover recovery podcast event of the century. Dave from Dopey joins the morning team at RMA to catch up on his pursuit of life, love, and recovery. All this and more. Why not? Today, on a very special edition of RMA. And welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Kata.
So there is some crossover between the Dopey audience and the RMA audience, but there are a lot of people that listen to us that have no idea what Dopey is, believe it or not.
Really?
And they're always mystified when we make a reference to Dopey.
So what is Dopey?
Well, I would imagine somebody from the Dopey Nation, which is the group of people that have risen up around Dave in a sort of cult of personality, out of a place of love, of course. Somebody did a Wikipedia entry for Dave.
Really?
For Dopey, yeah.
That's awesome.
So I amended it a little bit, but I'm just going to go through it. Dopey is an American self-help and comedy podcast about personal experiences of substance use disorders and addiction. The show is hosted by Dave M. I don't know if he uses his last name or not, or he has been lately.
He's pretty anonymous now.
Who is a recovering heroin addict. It is based in New York City and was formerly co-hosted by his friend Chris, who tragically passed away in July of 2018. Dave describes the show as being about drugs, addiction, and other dumb shit. Initially conceived as a show about the humorous side of addiction, specifically excluding stories about recovery, the focus has changed over time, especially following Chris's relapse and overdose. Dave now hosts the show alone with regular celebrity guests and a revolving cast of characters that include his wife Linda, his father Alan, and semi-regulars Ray Brown and Aaron Carr. I wrote that last sentence myself.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very unique show. I mean, a lot of us who are part of the Dopey Nation or tied up with the show, it's hard to explain because if you started at episode 1 through 40, and a lot of people do, they go back and they listen through, you go through like the excitement of Dopey getting bigger. They get Dr. Drew on, and then this horrific tragedy of his podcast partner, Chris, overdosing and dying. I mean, it's like, it's a horrible script that, you could ever write.
It is. I mean, it was, it was so tragic, really, and so I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it was the subject of an episode of This American Life, back in February 2019. If you find that episode, you get that was my I had never heard of Dopey before that.
It was an NPR special. I forget what it was called. The name of the show that they did.
This American Life.
This American Life. It's very famous, apparently.
Ira Glass. You've heard of him. Those guys.
Yeah. So and so. Basically, it's not just that it happened that Chris passed away tragically, ignominiously with an overdose as a recovery podcast, but it's what Dave did afterwards, I think, that really captures the imagination and the hearts of so many people. I mean, he didn't just quit.
No.
And if I remember back, Chris was an integral part of a lot of the technical aspects of the show. Like, a lot of the stuff you do that I don't do, I think it was the same. Chris was doing a lot of that stuff.
Right.
So Dave really had to pick up the pieces, and instead of even taking a week off, the very next episode he brought friends of Chris on.
His girlfriend.
And then, he had Annie come on, his fiance. And so all of us listening to it really feel like we lived through it. And so, following the show like that, and people all the time are going back to the beginning, listening all the way through, and then they'll be like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry," and it happened so long ago.
It's strange. He must be experiencing the tragedy over and over again with every listener email he gets about it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, we could ask him about it, but, in some ways, like he said one time that, it makes him feel like Chris is still alive, because people who are listening to the show for the first time, he's living on the, sort of like our show. When people start from the beginning, they ask me, "How's the store doing?"
Yes.
Or they want, it's like a parallel universe.
Yes. I get weird emails of people wanting to know what I thought about the thing that you said in episode 39. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck he said in episode 39.
So we get that all the time. But
so we're waiting for him to arrive.
Yes.
It's 8:23. He's due at 8:30.
Well, we should catch up. We took a dark week.
Did we?
Did we?
No, we put an episode out last week.
What was last week?
Last week was the two movies. I mean, the two books.
Right.
The crackhead guy.
Right. So that was last week.
We took a dark week before that.
Yeah, I can't keep anything straight. I had a pretty interesting evening with the parents of Max's friends. So one of Max's friends' fathers is this like super successful vegan restaurateur.
Oh yeah.
And he was on Shark Tank. I don't even know his last name. His first name is Guy. And he's opened up this restaurant, Beyond Sushi, which is...
I've heard of that place.
He's developed a fake raw fish style thing, which apparently is amazing. I haven't tried it yet, but it was so successful, he's opened up several other restaurants of different cuisines, but vegan. And so his latest restaurant, this is pre-opening, called Elixir, is a vegan Mediterranean restaurant.
Oh.
And so it hasn't opened yet. So he invited all of us to basically have a free meal.
Nice.
And then take surveys and give them like...
How do you know this guy?
It's Max's friend's father.
Okay.
So he's one of these guys that they moved out from the city when COVID hit.
So he lives out here.
Yep. He lives around the corner.
Right.
And so, he's a transplant from Manhattan, I think.
So the restaurant's in the city.
All of them are in the city.
Okay.
So it's Sunday night at 7 was the table. So many of us couldn't do it because it's crazy. It's Sunday night going into Manhattan. But we missed his last restaurant opening at an Italian vegan place. We're like, we got to do this.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity to get to know some of these parents and things. And we're trying to foster relationships.
You guys are great at that.
It's my wife.
We hide from that. We hide from all of our friends' parents.
It's all Christine. I have nothing to... I just show up. And I just try and do my best to not be a curmudgeon,
Yeah.
And so we got to carpool with one of our neighbors who's one of Max's friends' parents. And so it was cool to get to know them. But they're a fun group, I'd say. They're all like transplants from Queens recently. And so they've got that over here type of thing. They're very like fun and loud. And it was nice. My parents came over to watch the kids. And,
Was there vegan wine served?
Yeah. I made a few jokes like they had asparagus, and I'm like, oh, this tastes just like real asparagus. I'm like, is this the vegan? And yeah, we're just so it was a lot of fun, but it made me think. You know what? If I could have a 5-star vegan cuisine 3 times a day, guess what? I would be vegan. You know?
No, you wouldn't.
You got to taste
Who the fuck
this
are you
stuff.
kidding?
And everybody, of course, had stomach problems afterwards.
Really?
One of the guys, his name is Mo. He owns that pizza truck. Did you ever meet this guy?
Mo of the pizza truck.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. He's from Italy, so he's got this beautiful Italian accent. In any case, he's one of the dads. He disappeared towards dessert to the bathroom, and we were waiting for him because his wife's like, well, "Where is he? We got to go home." And I think he had some vegan cuisine. I think is what happened.
Went right through him.
Yeah, but it was excellent. I mean, it tasted like chicken, just like everything else. And I was impressed.
Wow.
Yeah.
We also went out Sunday night, which is unusual for me and you. I mean, it's weird to go out on a Sunday night.
We should have been going out together.
We should have. My wife and I went to see Sarah Silverman, the comedian, at the Paramount.
How was she? She's kind of dirty, isn't she?
She's filthy. Funny, very short show. I mean, it was the perfect Sunday night comedy because she had an opener. He went 20 minutes. Some guy who used to write for The Daily Show. He was great. And then she did about an hour. And we were done by 8:30 and home by 9.
That's
I was
amazing.
Thank you, Sarah Silverman.
That's amazing.
It was funny. We went out for Thai food beforehand, that little place in Huntington around the corner from the Paramount.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Which is it called? What restaurant?
I don't know.
There's a million restaurants at Huntington.
I want to say Prick King because that's my favorite Thai restaurant name. But
Prick King.
But no, I don't know. There's 2 in Huntington. There's Thai USA, and then there's this other one. And the other one is good. But, I was trying to check out the scene at the Sarah, because I don't go to a lot of comedy shows. You go to a lot of comedy shows, right?
More than I'd care to to admit. It's true. Now I'm thinking back on which ones. But yeah, this is all. My wife is like the social master.
I'm glad you got one of those.
Yeah, because I would never do it.
I don't, but I kind of like sitting on the couch. But regardless, I was trying, as I do, when I go to these things, I always look to see who's drinking and who's drinking what and how much people are drinking. And there were a couple of folks in their 40s and 50s who were hitting it, pretty hard. And there was some heckling going on.
Heckling? Like they didn't like her?
One guy booed her.
Boo, you Democrat.
On her. She was talking about abortion, and she's obviously very pro-choice. And somebody booed her, and she went off. She teed off on him. That was kind of fun.
That's a real comedy killer. Like, what we're doing abortion jokes.
She can somehow make that work. I don't know.
Well, better.
And then this other guy in the front row was trying to snap a picture, and there was absolutely no photos. And she calls him out. She's like, "You think you're being sly? You get your phone on your belly there. You're trying to get a shot."
Does she fucking care?
And she's like, "What? I don't know." But then he made the mistake of being like, "But you're hot." And then she just kind of went off on him for a little while.
That's some of that old-fashioned zinging the crowd comedy.
Yeah, but I mean, she's good on her feet. It was enjoyable. It got me to the point of thinking I might want to go out more on Sunday nights if I can be home by 9.
Yeah, that's kind of key, getting home early. We've been going out. Well, I have to go out in the week sometimes because, Noah has this drum lesson at 6 o'clock. Oh, this is interesting. So Noah's got this drum teacher. We go to the music store. It's a little soundproof booth. There's 2 drum sets and a chair in it. Drum teacher sits on the far chair. Noah is on the other throne. I sit in the middle, and they do a drum lesson.
Right.
Which sounds like a nightmare, but I love it because we're sort of team coaching him, He's saying things like, "Noah, cross your hands over," and we're sort of like.
How does the instructor feel about you jumping in there?
He wants. I tried to leave. I'm like, "I'll leave you guys too." He's like, "No, stay, hang out." He just likes to talk music and know.
They're also afraid to be left alone with your children, probably.
Yeah, and Noah too. It's like, "Don't leave me alone with him." But so we get to the listen yesterday, and he goes, "Oh, you heard I won't be around for a couple of weeks," and I'm like, "Tony, really? I didn't." That's why my bill was half as much. I guess nobody told me. Apparently, he was hired. This is like his big break. The guy's in his, probably in his 50s. He's been an amazing session drummer teacher for who knows how long. This was his big break. So Roger Daltrey of The Who is playing a cruise ship. And the drum tech for the band died or something.
Oh, shit.
And he got the call from England. He's like, "Hello. Tony, we need you to be the drum tech for Roger Daltrey, you know?
Oh, wow.
And so he's going to...
So he's not playing drums for Roger Daltrey.
He's moved into drum tech land.
Okay.
Which someone has to die to get those gigs.
He's one step away from being Roger Daltrey's drummer. Hopefully he can do it by the time he's 75.
And I told him, I said, when the drummer dies, you're up, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, I know.
I think it's a race, though, between who's going to die first, Roger Daltrey or his drummer.
But, like, can you imagine you finally get your break and you're the drum tech for Roger Daltrey's cruise ship band? But he's very excited.
God, in your 50s, like running around humping drum kits and setting that shit up. Ugh.
It's been his whole life, and he's an amazing drummer. But, like, he reminded me of these chess masters who go crazy and just play in Washington Square Park all the time.
Right.
They're amazing.
Yeah, but they're hustlers. They take money off people.
Well,
off tourists.
and he takes money off people like me. It's, you know.
Indeed.
But I was really excited for him and stuff. So we're having a lot of fun with that. And the acting lessons started back up. And
You're busy, man.
Max's basketball games and his jujitsu. And it's just like, I'm running ragged, man.
Yeah, at the end of this week, I have to go and retrieve Dimitri from Scranton and bring him home for the weekend, for Super Bowl weekend. Cause
he's coming back for Super Bowl.
Yeah, he still doesn't have any friends out there, so he wants to watch the Super Bowl with us, which I find odd.
That's
but
cool.
I'll take it. You know, I mean, I don't know that for a fact because he may come home and he's got a couple other friends from high school, one of who left his college and is sitting in his room doing nothing, and then he's got a friend who just sat in his room and did nothing after graduation. So I'm thinking maybe he'll go and want to watch the Super Bowl with them.
Yeah.
But then I have to drive him back on Monday, so I have to take a day off from work. So it's like, what a fucking pain in the ass, you know?
Yeah.
In a way, but I'm glad he's coming home. But on the other hand, you know...
Why not just hang out at school? That's what I paid
right.
for.
I know.
I totally forgot there was a Super Bowl. And it reminds me of the Super Bowl relapse story. So if you haven't heard my Super Bowl relapse story, I'm sure it's on one of the episodes. It's one of my favorite relapse stories. My sponsor in AA had invited me to a Super Bowl party. And for some reason, it was there's alcohol at the party. And I proceeded to get wasted.
For some reason. It's a Super Bowl party. This is America.
Everybody was supposed to be AA guys, but it wasn't. And in any case, you got to find that, you know, search Super Bowl. And so I always, this time of year makes me think of Super Bowls past. I used to get crazy at these Super Bowl parties. My wife used to have the old party crew I've talked about.
Right.
He would have these Super Bowl parties, and it was just drugs and drinking, and it would turn into 2 days, you know.
Nothing says sport like mounds of cocaine and gallons of vodka.
Of course, I never ended up watching. I would be in the music studio just like talking to somebody about recording, you know, for 3 hours, and I'd come out and, you know, my legs are sore from sitting in the same position, you know, type of thing. Like, who won? So that's my memories of Super Bowls past.
Wow.
But I don't even know who's in it this year.
Me either. And nor do I really care.
Yeah.
I just use it as an excuse to eat, mostly.
Yeah, I used to pay more attention, but I couldn't even tell you. But I don't know. I feel like there should be a party of some kind, but there never is.
There should be.
At least we're not invited to any.
Yeah, that's good.
So I just heard from Dave. He says he's running a little late. And that's great because it'll give us time to prepare. So we're going to get ready.
You want to play a voicemail from Ryan?
Yes, we've got an update from Rhina. He was just in Florida for some reason, so I said, give us an update.
He's got one.
All right.
Here we go.
Rhina.
That's not how that works.
He's been doing pretty good, I think. He just recently went on Suboxone, but with a doctor. You know, so many times people just buy it off the street and hope for the best. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work.
I mean, I've done that before.
Let's see. There's no reason this should not be working except Apple products are absolute fucking garbage. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, guys. It's Ryan Johnston from Chicago. Just calling to check in. Nat had left like a little message on Facebook, like, check in, question mark. I was like, yeah, I'll give those guys a call. I'm just getting back from Florida. I was there for about a week. It was a nice reprieve from the sub-zero temperatures out here in Chicago. And, you know, it was always weird stepping off the plane after being in like 70-degree plus weather into like -10, you know. But it is what it is. It was a nice little break from the winter. But, you know, there's really not too much going on. Recovery is going decent. You know, I'm still doing the MAT thing, and, you know, I do have some concerns with that as there's a chance that my Medicaid will be ending in March. So there's some fear around that, man, because, like, I'm going to potentially not have the money to get the medications that I need that have gotten me to this place where I am. But that's still a month and a half away because it wouldn't be till late March. So, I'm trying not to fear it, but just accept it and kind of become realistic about what I'm going to do when that happens.
Does he call back?
What happened to that? It just stopped for some reason.
Yeah.
Wait.
There
we go.
But there's certainly some fear around there. I've also been dealing with some health issues with my heart. So I'm getting, I'm just doing what I can with that. I'm getting testing. I have cardiology stuff on February 17th. They're going to put a monitor on me, and then I have to get an echocardiogram.
Yikes.
Chance there's nothing, but there's also a chance of something. But, all in all, I'm definitely still grateful for the path I'm on. Things that are so much better than they were. And I owe a lot of that to the show. I owe a lot of that to the community, the Discord. I'm kind of a lurker in the Discord. I don't really say much, but I do read it.
That's like
I
me.
just appreciate all the support from the community. Again, it's been a staple of my progress, and without y'all, I'm nothing. I appreciate and love each and every one of you guys. Have a really good day. Much love. Peace.
Couple questions.
Yeah.
One, so, it's great to hear from Ryan, and it's not true. You're not nothing without us. You're complete and whole and beautiful as you are, man. So don't think that don't draw your strength from us because you have it all within you, man.
We're two sides of the same coin.
That's right. Second thing, so medically assisted treatment, right, for opioids. Like, okay, so his Medicaid's going to run out. He will have been on it for a few months now. So how do you get off it?
Well,
besides like having your Medicaid cut off and no more money to buy it.
Well, what the doctor should do, if they're certain that he's not even going to be able to get the generic brand, because what happened to me is whatever insurance I had stopped covering the brand name. And so I just got the generic. So I don't know if that's something where he can move to the buprenorphine generic. But the way I got off it was with a doctor, you plan it. This is what people typically don't do. It's like you plan it to titration.
Okay, so it's like like coming off of alcohol with benzos or something.
So if you're on 4 milligrams, for a month, then you go to 2, then you go to 1, and then they go to something called subtherapeutic. And I had friends who were ripping the half of the 1 to make sure that, it's almost psychological to a point. Now, there is some discomfort doing it that way.
Yeah.
And I remember, it depends on how long you're on it. But you can have like protracted, for months, just diarrhea, stomach issues, and things like that.
You hear that, Ryan?
But that was it. You feel a little fluey, but it's way better than like just stopping methadone or like coming off of heroin.
Yeah.
It lasts a little bit, but you're uncomfortable, but you get through it. The key is, not going back to your old soothing techniques.
Well, how long were you on it?
About 2 years.
2 years. So this isn't something that you take for like, a few months to manage your cravings in the beginning and then pull it.
Well,
right?
some doctors do it that way.
Yeah.
I had doctors try and do that with me. It didn't work.
Yeah.
They'd put me on, like, I would go to a rehab. A rehab would do this. Mm-hmm. If I was addicted to opiates, like, let's say, they would put me on like a 7-day course of Suboxone, which was insane because it doesn't give you a chance to stabilize, get a recovery program, and then come off of it.
Yeah.
So I would say that, I don't know, they do it differently, and that's the problem. There's no like standard of care, but everybody's different, yada, yada. So I would definitely ask about alternatives to the brand name if that's a possibility. Don't buy it off the street, though.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, that's never worked.
Yeah, not a good idea. So when I was in the city last week, I sent you a picture that I thought was really weird. Outside of one of those quasi dispensaries for weed, that there are in the city. But it was an ad for Kratom, but the focus of the ad was exercise recovery. There was one right before that.
Oh, Experience Kratom, your new pre-workout.
It's a pre-workout supplement. They're trying to push it as a supplement, it seems like.
I can see how that would work because the amount of Kratom that I take, it's in a little shot that I do one each morning. And it's Kratom's an interesting like compound or whatever it is. it's like in very little amounts, it's coffee. It's very energizing.
Right.
If you take like if I'm taking 500 milligrams to make me feel like coffee, like right now I'm up. But if you take like, I think Ryan was on like 12 grams, which is piles of kratom in tea and stuff, that is supposedly gives you like an opiated effect.
All right. So if you take a small amount of this substance, it'll make you be able to do what that girl's doing with those ropes.
Definitely. You could frozen ropes. But
take them before the gym, before you go to the gym. Take some kratom.
Yeah. I mean, it does wake you up and get you moving in those low amounts. Yeah.
I guess it's like caffeine in terms of performance enhancement, you know?
Well, it's a cousin, from what I read, it's a cousin of the coffee plant. And so it's a similar.
It's the coffee plant's black sheep of the coffee plant family.
Sheep, but, yeah, it's funny. We actually had some. There was an interesting article that one of the monksters, I think your friend Luke, posted. We were talking about how NA drinking, non-alcoholic drinks and non-alcoholic culture are starting to really take hold and become. Is this the recovery in the news?
We're going to do it early, I guess.
Recovery in the news. Recovery.
We're all just fucked up today. All right.
In the news, motherfucker. Yeah, so thanks for posting this. The article is from NPR.
National Public Radio.
National Public Radio. Brought to you by the Helena Rubinstein Foundation. This drinks festival doesn't have alcohol. That's why hundreds of people came. One of the hottest
it was all over the festival.
Very exciting night. One of the hottest tickets in Washington, D.C. last weekend was to a festival that was all about drinking and having fun without being fueled by alcohol. The sold-out Mindful Drinking Fest was emphatically zero proof, but it offered plenty of proof that the movement to drink less alcohol is booming. And with an explosion of new choices, it's also delicious. From a ginger old-fashioned to espresso martinis and spritzes, hop water to pink rosé, the rich complexity of today's alcohol-free drinks was on full display.
Do you get the feeling that like some of the folks that are really into this movement are just tools?
Yes.
Or is that just me? Well, it seems like they're trying to apply like a Silicon Valley sensibility to this.
Because it's a pseudo-health. I mean, it is a health movement. I feel like there's certain people who are doing, non-alcoholic drinks because they don't want to like get arrested and lose their whole, family and job. And there's people who are just like, here's a trend. It's a health trend.
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with that. And maybe that's being a little too harsh because anything that advances non-alcoholic beverages, I think is a good thing. But I've really drifted far away from the NA beverage scene. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't tell you the last time I had an NA beer. And, anytime I'm confronted with a choice now, like if I'm traveling and I ask for an NA beer and they say they don't have one and I have something else, lately, like even though they have them, I pick something else anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't want to drink a beer.
Yeah.
I don't want, it's not for me.
I was just having this conversation with one of the recovering addicts, just normies, as we would call them at this dinner. Not normies.
Hate that word.
Civilians.
Yeah. Sorry.
But we were having this exact conversation because the guy that drove us is a normal drinker. He drinks like whatever when we go out, but he didn't have a drink. And one of the other dads was like, oh, you want like a non-alcoholic beer or something? And I said, and they know I don't drink. And we got into that discussion, like, what's the point of having a non-alcoholic beer? Yeah. And I said to him, I don't like the taste of beer. It completely defeats my purpose for drinking. So why would I drink it? And then I got a mocktail that was tasty.
Yeah. I mean, mocktails are interesting. You're basically paying $15 for a glass of juice, but it's in a nice glass and it's got like stuff on it and, all of that. But like, I mean, I've been seeing, and I don't know if it's just a function of the way Facebook or whoever's pushing ads to me, but I've been seeing so many ads lately for non-alcoholic beers and non-alcoholic spirits, and
you're in the algorithm.
I'm in the algorithm for it, and I don't know why, because I just don't.
Well, I think it's big business, and
it is big business.
One of the things this article touched on is how I'm used to feeling like they call alcohol an adult beverage, and like to make people like us who want like a shirt. Well, I don't do any favors by ordering Shirley Temples, but feeling like you're a child because you're not drinking an adult beverage.
Right.
And at this, the article is talking about this festival. It says non-drinkers get treated like adults again. So this is something that had been bothering me. Brown doesn't want to see a new prohibition era, but he notes that the temperance effort started in an earlier era of excess. Drawing on his research, he said that in the 19th century, all of the early bartending manuals included non-alcoholic drinks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you feel like, you're at the kids' table, when you're,
I mean, maybe in the very beginning, but I'm like of an age now where I could give a shit less about what anybody thinks about what's in my glass. Like
too,
I do not care.
I'm almost at my mother-in-law, her level of not giving a shit. You get to your 70s, you just say what the fuck is on your mind.
Where I think NA beer, and this is probably a controversial thought to have, but my thinking about NA beverages is almost like their harm reduction in the early stages of sobriety. Like if you go somewhere and you're going to go off the wall and you're going to have a drink, but they have NA beer and you have one of those, two of those, and that scratches the itch for you, I think that's great use for it. Same thing with any kind of a mocktail or any kind of these weird proto alcohol-free spirits.
Yeah, like
have the drink. Don't fucking listen to the AA Nazis who are going to tell you it's non-alcoholic beers for non-alcoholics. Just do the thing. If it's harm reduction, great. But you have to know yourself pretty well, because the flip side of that is maybe you have that beer and then you're like, fuck, why am I drinking non-alcoholic beer when I can drink regular fucking beer?
Exactly. It gets you used to drinking that. Tasting that. Call you.
Who?
All right, Dave is texting me. Call me.
We are going to take a short break.
And we'll be right back after these words.
Hey, we're back.
And we're back.
So, Dave's just running a little late, a little car trouble.
We're worried he may not make it.
We're going to...
I will pick him up if his car breaks down.
All right.
So we were just talking about...
I don't know about that mechanic. I'm like, I have Spilkas now because...
Spilkas in your Genectazoid?
In my Genectazoid, because I've heard things about that mechanic.
Which one? There's Hetty and there's the Irish guy. They're both good.
See, I go to this guy, Mark, at the Gulf Station...
Yeah, that was Glenn's place.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sold it, though. I don't know the guy now.
Oh, he's good.
Well, yeah.
Right. Well, hopefully he doesn't get ripped
We
off.
could call AAA or something.
I mean, he's a functional adult. He can figure that shit out.
Of course he is.
All right.
Yes.
All right, so sober drinking festivals.
Yes. Sober drinking
Do we like
festivals.
them? Do we want to go to one? I don't think I want to go to one.
I don't really want to go to one, but I like that this is a culture. This is cultural. This is coming back. But I think we were talking about how, just like when one drug dealer, one drug pin dies, somebody comes in to fill the spot. And I sort of identified cannabis as the thing that would sneak in. We were sort of cheering that our kids, wouldn't drink because the culture's, kind of anti-drinking or going in that direction. But at the same time, it's like a cannabis culture now. It's like, it's so acceptable. It's like, and they're basically learning that in school, that it's normal.
They're learning all kinds of weird shit in school about what's normal these days. But, that is what it is. I mean, cultures change and they're going to have to navigate that world, regardless of what we think about it. Yeah, I don't know. Has Noah talked to you at all about weed or anything?
No, but I've sort of been trying to get some, info on what's happening because he's at the high school. They have it from 7th to 12th grade where, normally.
Yeah, Ben's in his class.
They wouldn't normally
Are you explaining to the people?
Yes.
Is that what you're doing?
I know you know that. But most people don't realize, that we have 7 through 12 in the high school. So they're with all of those kids. It's the same bathrooms. And here's Dave. Hello. Okay, cool. The temperature light is off. He thinks he'll be okay.
Fantastic.
Okay. All right. See you soon. So he is.
You heard it here first. The temperature light is off.
The temperature light is off.
So he's going to make it. Okay. We were talking about weed in the school, or do you want to talk about something else?
He was saying, he was saying that vaping is something that goes on,
everywhere.
Everywhere. He says the bathroom smells like blue raz.
I don't know what that is.
I don't either, but I think it's a vape flavor, which, by the way, I quit vaping.
Really?
This is one reason I'm so edgy.
I congratulate you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Not that one.
Yes,
that one.
Thank you. I've quit vaping. I finally...
How long has it been?
It's 3 days.
Oh.
Because my kids, because they get totally indoctrinated about vaping being this evil demon. Meanwhile, these kids have no idea that I used to smoke cigarettes, and that was the real evil demon. This is just kind of a friendly demon.
Are you using any medically assisted treatment like gum or lozenges?
I have these mints that I take.
Yeah.
Take the edge off, which I'm thinking
work?
about now. Yeah, it does.
Do you want a mint right now?
I do.
You're sitting here. You really want a mint, don't you?
I want a mint. I'm clenching my teeth.
Where are the mints?
I think in my room.
Do you hide them?
No, I don't. No one else wants these mints but me.
I don't know. All of a sudden, I'm starting to think about maybe taking a mint.
You want a mint? They're great.
No, I don't. I'm not going to take a mint, but my brain just went right to boy. Nat's taking some kind of mint. I should take the mint.
No,
too.
This is only a mint so I can be respectable to my children,
right?
Because they have latched onto this. I almost feel like they're telling me to stop using drugs and like, Dad, you're killing yourself. What are you doing? And I'm like, it's not that bad. But finally, and they took it upon themselves to take my vapes without asking me, and they threw them out and they destroyed them in a ritual ceremony outside.
Really?
They did. Huh. And I did not tell them to do that. I was like, what are you guys doing?
Did you tell them you could just go to 7-Eleven and get another one?
Yeah, they know. Because they're like, you always buy more. I'm like, this time, guys, no more vaping. So if I'm a little edgy and a little bit uncomfortable.
I like you edgy and uncomfortable.
Yeah, this is how I do my best work.
Right.
So what are we going to talk to Dave about? He's going to get here.
I don't know.
I'm going through it in my head. I'm like, I've met him a couple of times. I talk to him all the time. But I still get nervous.
Yeah.
Isn't that silly?
I don't know. I mean, we don't have to. He's like the second live interview.
Yeah. Well, we had Joseph Nouse.
Yeah, that was fucking pressure cooker because the guy flew out from California.
Yeah.
Just to do the show. Well, I mean, and to go to the ballet and shit, but
Yeah, I'd love to have him back. I just like him as a person.
Yeah, he's a
like,
nice,
he was
super
cool to
nice
hang
guy.
out with.
Yeah. He and his wife, they're great, Teresa. Yeah.
Oh, and we wanted to talk about, there's been a couple of important soberversaries.
Yes.
On This show is brought to you by Patreon, by the way. What's Patreon? It's a members-only subscription service featuring Discord private messaging. We do some video episodes. So we have a Discord chat group where we basically recover together. We talk every day. And it's at patreon.com/recovery in the middle ages. And join up. And so on the Discord, we celebrate everybody's soberversaries. And so we have a couple important ones. Soberversaries. You've done it. Congratulations.
Congratulations to Liz on achieving 2 years of continuous sobriety.
Queen Elizabeth of Monsterhaven. Haven. Congratulations, Liz.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've been a integral part of the RMA community.
The heart and soul.
We appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you, Liz.
Yes.
And congratulations. Who else?
Let's see. Grant recently celebrated 900 days.
That's right. Congratulations, Grant.
900 days.
900 days.
And Nat recently celebrated 5 years of continuous sobriety.
Years. That's right. You get your marbles back, they tell me, but nobody gave me a bag of marbles. That's what you're supposed to get.
Charlie, back in middle of January, celebrated 34 months booze-free.
Nice, Charlie.
And, yeah.
The wharf rat. The monster.
And I think I could keep scrolling back. And if anybody I missed, we'll get to you. Sorry about that.
Join us. If you have a soberversary, join us on the Patreon. Tell us, and we'll announce it. Or on Facebook, we have a private message group where we talk all things recovery and stay in touch. Also, it looks like that the Monksters are meeting up again. Are they like in Florida meeting up again, or am I just reading old chats?
You're reading old chats. They met up like January 28th, I think it was.
I thought I saw that they were
meeting up?
Yeah, like they're in Florida or something. Yeah. So the Monksters are meeting.
So you guys should just buy a little condo down there.
Yeah.
And Nat and I will fly down and...
I can't wait to one day
there.
have like, I used to dream when we first started the show, I dreamed about making this into like a retreats and, like a recovery elevator. A lot of the guys, a lot of our audiences cross over from Recovery Elevator, Annie Grace, and then Dopey, but Recovery Elevator, he's got his shit together with all of these, sober retreats. They go to Costa Rica. So
I think he's got a place in Costa Rica now.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, good for him.
So stick with us. Maybe we'll get there.
Okay.
All right.
You know what? Let's hold on. Let's take another break.
Yeah.
Because I think Dave will probably be pulling up soon.
Yeah.
And then we'll start talking to him 40 minutes into the show.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
We'll be right back after those words. Testing.
We're all just trying to. Trying to fit this shit in to our normal, ordinary lives, and it's like
I know people think all we do is podcast, and this is our entire lives, right? Meanwhile, we're all stressing out about work.
Well, and my car is going to explode on my drive home. It's not good.
Yeah, what happened? You were on your way here, and
are we recording?
Oh yeah.
Well, also, fucking, do you know who Action Bronson is?
Yeah.
Last night, Action Bronson texted me, let's have lunch today.
Really?
And I said, no, I can't because I have to record Recovery in the Middle Ages. How about Thursday or Friday? And he doesn't write me back. Then I'm driving here. Right. The fucking temperature light goes off. And then I smell the smell of burning smell.
That's not good.
It's very frightening. And then I open the windows. And the temperature light turns to blinking and goes off. And I said, how bad could it be?
Right.
And then I get here and I get a phone call. I am in charge of many orders from Katz's Deli. And I get a call that the order's outside of the place. And I knew the order wasn't for today.
Whoops.
But sometimes sometimes we can get away with it. They're happy to see the food.
Right.
But it's just so... It's such a clusterfuck. I live in a constant clusterfuck. It's like I'm addicted. I don't know if I'm addicted to chaos or I thrive in it or I don't. I'm just so disorganized I don't have a chance.
I think it's a symptom of being middle-aged, having a family, and trying to work. Our whole lives seem like that every single day. It's like,
I don't know.
Most of my conversations with him every day are like, Jesus Christ, is there ever going to be a minute where we could just sit down and do nothing? Because it never seems to materialize. We're always like balls to the wall all day, every day.
That's why I love getting sick.
Yes.
I recently got sick.
Me too.
And it was just like the greatest time of my life.
Does Linda let you be sick?
If I'm sick enough, she doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And I was throwing up. So like once you're throwing up, you kind of have the green light to watch television.
That's the key.
But how sick is that? Like Friday I had to leave work early and come home because I ate some questionable sushi at a place that I'm not going to talk about, but I should call them out. And
was it Hanu?
No.
What was it called? Call them out. They're not listening. Call them out.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Trust me.
Mostly because I can never remember it's that place in Syosset near the train station.
Akira or something?
Something like that.
Kato?
No. Kato I've been ordering from for
Kato's
years.
great.
Never had a problem. Anyway, so I started getting the chills and the shits and everything at work. And my first thought was not, oh shit, I'm getting sick. It was like, awesome, I'm getting sick. I get to go home. I get to lie on the couch. And that's what I did. I went home and I laid on the couch.
I got sick as shit, right? We went out to breakfast with my wife, and I got this gigantic special, egg taco with sausage special.
Sounds good.
It doesn't sound good to me anymore.
Huevos rancheros.
and I love huevos rancheros, but I was actually interviewing Johan Hari that day, and I was going over the interview, and I walked home from 2 towns over with my dog listening to Johan Hari preparing for the interview. And I get home and I interview Johan Hari, and it wasn't that good. It wasn't good. I might not even use it.
Yeah,
and,
I didn't even hear it.
And as soon as the interview's over, I start vomiting, and my daughter's playing in her woodwind band ensemble that night. I couldn't go, and I was vomiting, and the next day I blamed it on the restaurant, which I'll say is JT's in Bayport.
Right,
but 3 days later, my daughter got the same illness, so I don't think you or me can blame Akira, Kato, JT's, or anyone. I think it's a stomach flu.
Yeah, it may be, except it came and went really fast, and that stomach flu tends to linger a couple of days. I was back to normal by Sunday.
No, mine was exactly the same, and it's the exact same symptoms. Diarrhea. I projectile vomited for the night, which was awesome. It reminded me of withdrawal. I don't know how I can like that, but it somehow is like I like it.
Yeah, I've miraculously not gotten sick. I feel like shit, but
you'll get it.
Never sick enough for my wife to leave me alone.
What is sick enough for her to leave you alone?
I feel like if I was projectile vomiting, and she had to actually witness it, because she doesn't believe anything I say because of all my years lying to her as an active addict.
That's very annoying.
So even 5 years later, I'm still constantly trying to prove that I'm not withdrawing, I'm not high. That's how I feel.
I don't have that. I don't have that at all.
It might be in my head. But.
My wife doesn't believe anything, or if she does, she doesn't care. You know what I mean? She might believe me, but there's no sympathy. There is no
sympathy.
See, ever since I quit drinking, I have to be doing something all the time. I'm running around. I'm up. So if she comes home and sees me lying flat on the couch, she knows. She knows that there's something wrong with me because I do not do that. So I get a little sympathy.
Yeah.
And
that's nice.
Yeah, it's good for 24 hours.
If I did that, my wife would complain that I'm being lazy, or she would immediately assume that I was just watching TV for the last 6 hours. She's like, get off the couch.
My wife's pretty good with that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I try and stay on top of things, That's my living amends. I'm always doing dishes and folding things.
Okay. Well, living amends are good.
You got to do it.
I have to.
Otherwise, it doesn't
my
get
kids
done.
aren't going to do it.
I got my older son doing the laundry, his own laundry.
Really?
Yeah, not my laundry.
How old is he?
He's 16.
That's good.
Yeah.
My daughter refuses to do it. She's going to turn 13 this week.
Oh, God help you.
When I was 10, I had to do it.
Yeah.
And I told her when she was 9 she should start doing it, but her mother is like, no, I'm going to do it. I was like, it's going to be better for everyone if she does it. But whatever.
I mean, I always had to do it growing up. It wasn't even
you had chores?
An issue. Yeah. I had to do the dishes and all that, and cut the grass and everything. I don't know. Kids today.
Yeah, they don't want to do anything. What's the deal with kids?
So, thanks for making the time out. I appreciate it.
Busy. Yeah, and who is on the show? Did you have a little intro?
I did it.
Oh, Dave.
We did 40 minutes before you got
That's true,
here.
yeah.
So
we did nothing but talk shit about you for 40 minutes.
That's fair.
Where is this fucking guy?
Oh, man. I could have left really early, but me and Nat were talking that you like to get set up, and Nat was like 8:30, and I was like, all right. I left at 8, GPS said 9, and then there was some death on the highway, and it got me here at 9:30.
Yeah, it's fine.
Well, we're glad you made it alive.
I made it. I'm not usually a late person, so I apologize.
We were just sort of debating because, I mean, Dopey does this too, right? You sometimes you have a pretty long entree before you get to the guest.
Yeah.
And we do that too. And we sit there sometimes and we wonder, are people getting pissed off at that? Do they want to just fast forward to the
We've gotten complaints before.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
It really is, because I think I ask myself that question all the time. And the answer is, it's all, if it's good, it's good.
Right.
If it's not good, it's not good.
Exactly.
I mean, like Mark Maron, I never liked that Maron did that. Maron does a monologue and then he has his guest. And I didn't like that he did it, and yet I copied it. And I don't monologue. I'm like good for 7 minutes. Then I'll read an email.
Yeah, you throw things in
I'll
there.
do a voicemail, and then, whatever. It's all, but I regret it. Like this week, we had one of our biggest guests in my imagination, not in the audience's imagination, which is DMC from Run DMC. And
great interview, by the way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's nice. And I put up probably too much up front because I don't think there's a lot of like people who are dying to listen to DMC. Like as famous as DMC is, I don't think like people are like, I got to hear the DMC interview. I don't know. In terms of monologuing at the front, I don't know the answer. I've become sick. The thing that I'm obsessed with is making the show 2 hours long. If the show's not 2 hours long, I start like doing weird shit at the end to get to 2 hours.
Stretch it out.
Yeah, I don't
Get
know
your dad
why.
on for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know why I do that.
Do you see? My wife says, she listens occasionally, not very often.
To your show?
Yeah, to our show. But her thing is like, you guys go for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I cannot listen to something that's that long.
Right.
I cannot listen to the two of you talk for that long. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's like the prophet is without honor.
I was amazed that our wives listened at all. Like they were following it. And
they want to figure out what we've been up to.
Yes, exactly. It's morbid curiosity.
It's shitty if they don't listen.
Yeah.
Linda does not listen anymore. She listens if she hears that there's a guest on that she's interested in, she'll listen.
Yeah.
She never listened to me and Chris. She doesn't listen to me and anyone. She listens to herself. Yeah. When she's on, she listens.
And she loved Gabor Mate, right? That was like,
she's
very excited.
She loved him. She loved anybody, all those people that I had, the smart people, she likes to listen to.
Not like the Pop Goes the Weasel guy.
I don't think I ever put him out. I don't think
he was the star, by the way, of DopeyCon.
MC Search.
That was like
that
was funny.
He was a little bit of an albatross of DopeyCon.
Did everybody complain about that?
A lot of people complained, and I did an interview with him. It was like 2 hours long or something, and I didn't air it. I put it on Patreon, and I didn't put it out. I was always tempted to put it out, but I didn't.
Do you have any idea what your demographics are? Like who the average Dopey listener is in terms of age? Because I asked because like I listened to that DMC interview and I was totally in because the 80s, that period between 85 and 89 is when I was kind of running around with the crack and everything up in the Bronx. And so for me, that was like, I was like eating candy, listening to the stories about that era. But I wonder like, where's your audience? Like, what are they in terms of age? Do you know?
I don't know.
We're always trying to figure it out.
I don't know the demographic, but I know that people show up, meaning like with DMC, I've gotten, 10 messages from people around, mid 40s, and they're like, this is amazing. And then when I have Chloe LeBranch or Fentanyl J, I get 10 25-year-olds who are like, this is amazing. So I think it's mostly 30 to 40. Yeah. A little bit more women than men. Mm-hmm. And then on the outskirts. I mean, I think there are more older than younger because the show is we're old. Like we just got I have an editor I work with and she was born on my birthday in 1992.
Wow.
So it's like...
That'll make you feel old.
Well, it's interesting. You know what I mean? It's interesting that it's just... I remember 1992 very well. Here, pause it. I'm going to get in big trouble. Yep.
That's funny because my partner was just texting. Ta-da.
Yeah, it's interesting you should mention like Maron's like opening monologue because, I love that show and I've listened to it for years, but I'm not like so much into comedians like he is. So a lot of shows I find myself listening to the monologue and skipping the guest, which...
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was listening to Howard Stern on the way here. I was listening to the end of the Pamela Anderson interview, and then I listened to John Lovitz, and I loved John Lovitz when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, the interview on Howard Stern isn't good.
No,
it's a lot of it is because it's about being a comedian, or being an actor. And their choices. And it's like, fuck you. I don't care. I want to hear about life more than choices.
Right.
Although John Lovitz, for being kind of a loser, he was hanging out with David Bowie and stuff. It's pretty cool.
But what's he into today? I haven't heard from John Lovitz since.
Well, why would Howard put him on the show? I don't even know who. I think I have mental illness, serious mental illness.
SMI.
Yeah, I think I might. Who is this? It was some politician that was running for president and just got Santos.
Oh,
George Santos is our congressman. Actually,
he's a New York.
He's a New York congressman.
The guy that lied about everything
from this district.
I don't know anything.
Yes.
I don't know anything.
Yeah, so he's something else.
So they brought John Lovitz to play him as the liar.
That's amazing.
And Stern thought it was so funny. He's like, I'm going to put John Lovitz. And I didn't think, maybe it's because I'm out of touch, but I didn't think it was funny.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? It's funny what we think is funny.
I mean, it's interesting with when you get like A-list guests, or B-list guests who have anybody.
We don't. I don't think we've come close to the B list.
I'm just saying, like, because sometimes
I mean, Action Bronson, if he calls you back.
That's for Katz's. That's not for Dopey.
Oh.
But sometimes when you get somebody of that caliber, and it's really just publicists making the rounds, and they're just pushing a project, you're not really getting like
them
underneath. You're getting like the marketing.
Well, we don't get. I've never. What's the highest level? I guess Marin isn't even. I don't think Mary Marin's B list
easily.
Okay, you say Marin's B. Jamie Lee Curtis is A list.
Yeah,
she was very weird on the show. Like to be generous, she was weird on Dopey.
Yeah.
And I don't get anyone doing the rounds. Like, does anyone ever come on to promote? I don't think I've had anyone come on to promote anything. Right. And if they did, they would be fucking idiots because nobody listens.
Well,
to it.
We tried to get Hunter Biden with similar result.
But fucking Amy Dresner got
her. That's why we took the shot.
So annoying.
I know. I messaged her. I'm like, hey, how did you get in touch with her? And she's like, I can't tell you.
That's like the most annoying thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
That Rehab Confidential Hunter Biden thing, because they were trying, like, I'm very arrogant about where Dopey's at,
right.
And Rehab Confidential were playing as though they were competing with Dopey.
Oh yeah, they were making a go, trying.
And then they had Hunter Biden, and for a second I was like, oh fuck, I have to compete with Rehab Confidential. And then I couldn't get Hunter Biden because Hunter Biden is scared to fucking come on and drop the Dopey. Not to mention he doesn't know what the Dopey is, but he wouldn't want to do Dopey.
No.
Yeah.
He's got to be buttoned up, I think.
He needs like 30 years of recovery, and then he can come on Dopey when I'm dying.
His publicist got back to me and said he's done doing the press around that, and maybe if he does something else, we'll keep you in mind, like the Brajol. But it's fine, He
got back. I had a Dopey listener reach out, and he got back to her with the same kind of
I mean, the thing is, they can't if you have a podcast and. People who are outside of the recovery sphere don't know what the big podcasts are in the recovery sphere, right? So they look at a show like us. We have 5 episodes out there. We have, lots of 5-star reviews. We look legit, right? Despite the fact that our listenership is like a tenth of what yours is, right? But I'll still make the play. I'll try and get anybody on. I don't care.
That's what you have to do.
Act like you've been there.
We found lately though, like we kind of scaled down a couple of months ago because both of us were just way too overextended with work and with life and everything. So we kind of put the guest thing off to the side a little bit.
We were doing good for a little bit, and then
I want Anthony Weiner. That's the guy I want.
Yeah, you want Weiner?
Get him.
He's in recovery.
You should be able to get him. Is he in recovery?
Yeah.
Should I try to get him?
You probably should.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm just so not in touch. Like I'm out of touch.
I think it's sex addiction thing with him.
He got caught sending dick pics to some.
No, I remember
girl,
the story because his name was Weiner. I thought it was very funny.
He was all like, "I'm a sex addict."
Well, he's married to Huma Abedin, who's
still
used to be.
Yeah.
Who's Clinton's chief of staff, Hillary's. So and then his laptop. They found some. Always with the laptops with these guys.
I don't do shit on my laptop.
They found some kind of classified documents on there, so it was like a big to do.
Yeah,
but he's making a comeback. He's got a show on ABC now on AM. So and a podcast.
All right, I'll try to get him. Why not?
He'd be good. He'd be good.
And he's local, right?
He's local.
I could do it in person.
Yeah,
he lives across the street.
I'm done. I'm done with
lock up your cat.
I'm done with remote shit. I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done with remote shit.
It sucks. It's hard.
It's not good.
You really don't get the same experience.
I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. Like, I mean, I'll do it. I did it with Johan Hari. It was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
It's just like, there are some people you can do it with that are, Johan Hari, right, is somebody you should be able to do it with. Mm-hmm. And it was my fault that it wasn't great. Yeah. I mean, it was not true. It's really his fault. It was too late at night for him. Yeah. It was like 9 o'clock.
He was out of it.
He came on the Zoom saying, "I'm totally knackered." And I'm like, okay, that's a great way to start the interview. And then it's like he had 20 points that his publicist sent to me, and I was like, okay, I know these points, but what I'm interested in, his book was about it was about how we can't pay attention anymore because of the phone, because of social media and stuff. And he's, one of the foremost journalists around addiction. He wrote that book,
the opposite. I don't know what it
No,
was
the
called.
book was called Chasing the Scream, and it's really amazing addiction book. And he's always quoted as saying the
that's
opposite
like
of
the
addiction
biggest-
is connection.
Huge quote.
I don't even think he came up with it though.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't know why I'm going to bash Johan Hari on your show, but all I wanted to talk to him about was fucking because he's a journalist who talks about addiction, and he's a journalist who talks about attention and technology and screen stuff. Let's talk about the connection there, and he fucking wouldn't do it.
He wouldn't put it together.
He wouldn't put it together. And then I'm really going to say some stupid shit here. If anyone's listening, I ran up with Mark Maron, and Mark Maron said he had interviewed Johan Hari for his show, but Johan Hari refused to talk about himself.
What?
And Maron didn't air it.
What
Wow.
the fuck?
Yeah, this is.
I mean, the one thing you should know about going on the Mark Maron show is
You talk about yourself. Even your appearance, you went deep into your history and stuff.
well, I was really excited to talk about myself. Oh, you want to hear about elementary school? Let's go.
Yeah, he did the whole thing.
Yeah.
That was a
DMC,
good
man.
interview.
Fucking DMC. He's
amazing.
He's like listing everyone in his 7th grade class. Yeah. I'm like, all right, take it easy. I don't need to know about
He
this kid.
remembers
He
all
went
the
very,
details.
he went very deep.
Yes, deep
But I
dive.
appreciated that. That how the sausage was made in the basements of Queens. It was really compelling. I thought.
Well,
I enjoyed it.
I'm glad. It blew my mind to sit with him in my father's house. It blew my mind to sit in the room where I watched MTV Raps growing up.
Yeah.
With DMC.
Yeah.
Like that was cool.
Yeah, that must have been crazy. Like he's sitting right there, and you're explaining to him, like I was sitting right over there, listening to Run DMC. It's amazing.
It is. It's that's a joy, Or Michael Imperioli in my dad's kitchen, where I would sit and watch The Sopranos high on heroin, and I'm sitting with Michael Imperioli. It's cool.
That is pretty wild. It's interesting because you get such a weird cross section of people, man. I mean, you get everybody from
They're all good people. A lot of great people.
But the common thread is the addiction thread, right? So there's certain commonalities that go between guests, right? But they're from everybody from graffiti skateboard artists to top level comedians to Mackenzie Phillips, probably one of my favorite.
Yeah, she was great.
Two interviews.
I keep meaning to ask you if you can give me her contact information. I'm like, I wonder if I could get her on the show. She was amazing.
The thing about Mackenzie Phillips, the first interview was just like sick. You know what I mean? Like it was amazing. Yeah. And then I went out to California to do Maron's show, and I went to meet her. I went to the rehab that she works at, and I think she owns a piece of it. It's called Breathe Life. And it was like just really cool. You know what I mean? I should have recorded with her when I was there. That would have made a lot more sense. And then I came home and I did another interview with her, and it was good. But it's like, I just think you need togetherness. You know what I mean? Like you need togetherness. But Mackenzie Phillips is one of my all-time she's one of the people that I wanted more than anybody. And the first interview when she talks about her father and like the last hit of purple haze acid that she stole from him. It's like, you can't even believe it.
Great story.
Yeah, those stories, blew me away. Well, I feel like I always wanted to have a talk show. It's all I ever wanted when I was a kid, and I have one. And I'm like, it's humbling to hear you even know who's been on my show and that it's cool to you. You know what I mean? Like I honestly feel as though I do it alone. And nobody listens to it, even though I hear from people and I see numbers and I talk about it. It doesn't really feel like it exists.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of like pseudo closeness that we have with like listeners and other people like adjacent to the show. It's really interesting. Like we're basically complete strangers who only like talk to one another because I was a fan of the show and I'm like, I want to help, But there's so many people like that, and we've been forming these relationships with like our listeners, and it just blows my mind that these are real people, and they're real relationships. They're like meeting up. Like DopeyCon was a mindfuck, just like seeing everybody, that you got to know on Dopey Nation. It's
Mike,
really
you should have
amazing.
come to DopeyCon.
Yep.
Next year.
It was good.
It was great.
Yeah.
You liked it?
It was a lot of fun.
It was interesting, for sure. It was like a miracle. You know what I mean? It's like, because I live for Dopey. Like I fucking live for Dopey. I mean, I think my order of importance is my family, think Katz's and Dopey. I used to put Katz's in front of Dopey, and now they're probably neck and neck.
Yeah.
But I live for this show. I ask Nat. I'm fucking insane.
You can tell, and it's amazing because it's just amazing that you've been doing it this long, and it's still every single week. You never miss a week.
But I also never don't love it.
Right.
Like I don't like fucking fuck around with it.
Yeah.
I don't like if people ask to come on the show. And I'm like, I don't want. It's like
protective.
It's like, can you date my daughter kind of thing? It's like, no, you can't.
If you ask, that means you're off the list.
Well, it's an interesting. There's this.
Depends on who's asking, I guess. Right?
Nobody good is asking. Actually, one time, this woman asked. Her name is Holly Randall. Do you remember that episode? She was a photographer from Playboy and shot porn with her parents, and she has. She has a big podcast called Holly Randall Unfiltered, where she just interviews porn actors and actresses.
Yeah.
And she asked to come on. She didn't particularly bring the Dopey, but I was happy to have her on. We did a little ad swap too.
Yeah,
she was down with swapping.
She wanted to stop. Well, I like the different types of, whenever you're like announcing a new guest, it's like really interesting. You get like authors, musicians, just people who are like intelligentsia, other podcast hosts. So it's a nice mix, like week to week.
What makes these interviews really successful, though, like Marin's good at this, and you're really good at it, is you develop like an almost immediate intimacy with some of these guests that makes the interview style like incredibly engaging. And I've been trying to sort of tease out how that works. And Marin, I can do it with comedians and people in Hollywood because they have that common thread of common experience. But, when it comes to like a show, like a recovery-based show like Dopey, do you think the fact that you're able to get that sort of intimate relationship right off the bat because of the commonality of the thread of recovery that's running through it? Or do you think there's something else involved?
Well, that's a good question. I think that, first of all, I don't know that. I mean, I'm going to say this in all sincerity, and I don't know if Dopey is really a recovery-based show.
Fair enough.
It's definitely a component. I think it's something that I'm interested in as a person. Like, I'm interested in getting to know people way too fast. Like, that's just how I am. Like, I'll talk to somebody at the bus stop as though we're waiting for the bus. We're the same person. Why shouldn't we be able to talk like we know each other?
That's just like AA. You walk in and you're immediately telling everyone your deepest secrets.
I like that. I think also, this might sound cliched and it might or might not be true. It's because I'm from Manhattan. Like it's something that's built into. My mother would talk to everyone in my building as though she knew them, and everyone seemed happy to talk to her. And I loved watching that. I was really interested in that.
Yeah.
And so like, when it doesn't always work on the show, it certainly doesn't. It doesn't work. The chances of it working on Zoom or on the phone with a professional is very unlikely.
Right.
So like that's why like I'm trying to remove that. And COVID, you kind of didn't have a choice,
right?
And you got these weird names that you wouldn't have gotten, like the Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's or people like that. Right. She's somebody that was just promoting her book, or fucking your homegirl Annie Grace. She was like the worst Dopey guest in history. Bottom 5
Honestly,
Dopey guest.
That interview was
Annie.
It was not her best hour.
She just didn't want to be on the show.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you don't want to fucking come on my show, guess what?
Yeah.
Don't come on, you fucking idiot.
Well,
I'm sorry.
You definitely need. You need two people to be part of that relationship, right? To want the intimacy, because if they don't, then it's not going to work. If only one has it and the other doesn't, it's going to sound weird and stilted.
But when you nail it, it's gold. Like when I'm listening to an interview and you can feel the rapport, you can, you know what I mean? When you really break through and you're both like vibing, it's gold.
I wish that for bad ones, I could just be like, why the fuck are you on the phone with me right now? Like, I don't know why I never thought to do that. I think it's because it's like I'm fucking on the tightrope and I want to bring something home that's good.
Right.
And and I know it's not going to get good. You know what I mean? You're like 40 minutes in. It's not going to get good. I should blow it up because there's some entertainment in that. And I never done that before. I think I should try. I try so hard. Like, it's sad. it's fucking sad. I try so hard to make these people like me, and they're not interested. And I'm like, it's like demoralizing.
It's a real rejection.
It is. No,
it's a personal rejection.
It is. It's like, because why are you on the fucking phone with me being a cunt? And it's not just women. I mean, like, I was just, and, apologies to my misogyny. I'm using the English definition, British definition of cunt, not the American one.
I think we get it. Yeah.
But fucking, or Jake the Snake Roberts, right? Jake the Snake Roberts is coming back on Dopey this week, okay? And in my imagination, I was like, the first time he was on, it was good. And I go back and I listen to it.
It was awful, man.
It wasn't good.
He couldn't breathe. Is that the one where he hung up early because he was wheezing?
Yeah, his COPD was kicking in.
Oh, yeah.
No, but the reason I was like, why? And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, why did I think this was good? And then at the end of it, he goes, I'd like to do this every month. And I was like, that's why I thought it was good.
He's massaging your ego.
Well, I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just the idea. I grew up watching Jake the Snake.
Sure.
Yeah,
and like, I wanted him, okay, brother. It's like, I wanted him to want to be on the show, but how could you want to be on the show?
Why do you think that didn't work, that interview? I don't know. I thought it was pretty good.
I think he was just ill. Wasn't he like...
I mean, the sound was a little hokey, if I remember, on his end. But
I think the sound on his end wasn't great, and it was because of the way I was recording. And it's really about trying to figure out the way someone talks. And the way he talks, because he does these wrestling monologues and because he's very dramatic. So, like, he stops talking, and then he starts again, and you don't know that he's going to start again, and I don't see him. So I think I talked over him a lot. His story also is so gnarly.
Yeah.
He was born, I think he was born out of a rape conception, and he was sexually abused. And it's like, it's really serious stuff that, even though I've done so many interviews with people who have had such deep trauma, I'm not that great at handling it. Right. Like I because I didn't have that happen to me. So like I can be, what's the word? I not sympathetic, but there's another empathetic. But it's like how much it's like, how much empathy can I really show? And I can show some, but when the connection, and I don't mean that we didn't have a connection. It's like fucking John Lovitz and Howard Stern. Right. Poor Howard Stern is locked up in his mansion. He refuses to sit with people. Yeah. And it's like, and it really destroys the quality of his show because the connection doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, you could feel it. I have to pee so bad.
I want to apologize to all the Annie Grace listeners out there.
We were both on her podcast.
I know. I was very jealous. I think I'm actually just resentful of that.
But she's...
No, I'm too much of I'm not a Naked Mind devotee. I'm a 12-stepper, and she hates the 12 steps.
She's definitely...
Ooh, I don't know if she hates the 12 steps, but I think she sees the 12 steps as money that's not going into her pocket.
Right. I think I should start a beef with Annie Grace. This seems like the one person to do it with. It seems like an unlikely beef.
You should start it right here.
Do you know Shane Raymer's back?
Shane, you mean that sober guy?
Yes.
What?
He's back.
I didn't know he was gone. I stopped listening.
I don't know if he left either, but I know he's back.
Get him on the show. He's the...
I'm not getting him. No way.
There was a podcast, I don't know, a few years ago called That Sober Guy.
It started before Dopey.
Yeah, and Dopey was beefing with him for some reason. I can't remember why. They were talking shit or something. But it was funny because it was like two sober podcasts that, weren't that popular at the time, I don't think.
I'm definitely starting a beef with Annie Grace.
Yeah.
I don't think I could lose that beef. I think the audience would like it. And I think that her audience wouldn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
There's a surprising number of people that I've encountered, though, who use that book as a launching point for their own sobriety. So I'm, and have been successful with it because, the AA idea of addiction being a disease that ends inevitably in jails, institutions, or death is not the way that Annie Grace looks at the world of substance abuse, right? And a lot of people who are on that continuum who believe that addiction is on a continuum and you could still have a drinking problem even if you're not on that slippery slope to the morgue.
It's funny, though. It's funny how, like, the dogma pollutes people's brains.
Yeah.
I see AA totally like that old proverb about the blind man and the elephant. Mm-hmm. Like, meaning, to me, Like there's so much to 12-step recovery that I don't think about that, because I don't believe that. Like I don't believe that the alcoholic is on a death march to the morgue if they don't do the 12 steps. I don't believe that the alcoholic is on a death march to the institution or anything. We know from personal experience that that's pretty likely. It's a pretty likely scenario.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. But I think that her point is that there are other ways to skin the cat, and you don't necessarily need the 12-step programs. And there are a lot of people in 12-step who are very aggressive about it being the only way to salvation.
I mean, you go like all the time to that Long Beach meeting, which I have to go to at some point.
It's not Long Beach.
Isn't it? Where is it?
No, it's
it's on the beach.
Yeah, it's Corey Beach.
Out east.
It's Bayport. And now we're in the church, and I've been getting shit because I've been saying stuff in the meeting where I say that half measures don't necessarily avail nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, that half measures usually avail half. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that like you can do service and tell someone and it's still service.
Yeah.
You know, it's just there's a quasi-religious component. Yeah. The dogmatic component is terrifying, but people are fucking crazy. Yeah. The thing about Annie Grace, I commend her. Like, I think it's awesome that so many people have gotten to recovery through her program and her book. And see, I'm just so on the fence about making money off of recovery. It's such a weird, fucked up thing. And I'm working with a bunch of apps and shit that just profit on recovery, and I'm profiting on recovery.
I was going to say, I mean, we're sitting here, we both have Patreons, you know, so there is a financial element involved.
But I'm not putting together the Dopey program. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to teach anyone how to do it. And I'm also very, very, very active in suggesting free programs and being available. You know what I mean? Like, right. I mean, I put it as a joke. There was $100 tier on Patreon that one person actually paid, and I talked to her, and she's got like 18 months sober. So maybe I'm just like Jesus Christ. But I mean, like, honestly, if anybody reaches out to me, I'm there. You know, because that's what I was taught, and because that's what happened for me.
Right.
So like, but I at the same time, you know, like, I have a fucking job that I don't love, and I would love to be really wealthy, but I mean, like, I wouldn't know how to make a program of recovery and charge people for it. It just doesn't seem like that's my destiny. Like and that's why, like, when we talk about Dopey as a recovery-based show, I want addiction to be as important to Dopey as recovery, and I really want dumb shit to be as important as recovery, so that the show is more entertaining than anything else.
Do you think in the last, I don't know, couple of years, the Dopey has kind of drifted a little more in the recovery direction and a little less in the dumb shit direction?
I try to keep it even, but that's the issue. I try to even it out, but yeah, probably, right?
It reflects what you're doing with your recovery. Like, you've been getting, you know, more involved. I mean, you talk about it on the show in AA and 12-step where you weren't early on. So of course you're going to talk. I mean, you did the daily reflections on you know.
Oh, that was a big failure.
I mean, and you guys used to argue about whether or not to put the word recovery in the intro. Remember, it used to be like drugs, addiction, and dumb shit, and recovery. And like that was always kind of a debate, but I don't know how you have one without the other, unless it's like it's all bad.
Because then you end up like it's all bad, and it's just war story after war story after war story. And you know, I like those guys, but I don't know how much meth in LA I can listen to. Like, I mean, it's like,
well, I feel like it's all bad is going to benefit from the fact that none of those guys are going to die from addiction. You know, like our show. Who knows what our show would have been if Chris hadn't died? Yeah. You know, like Chris loved to talk recovery, though. He loved to talk recovery way more than I did. And lately, like, I think people like Fentanyl J makes the show great because he is the spirit of Dopey. Mm-hmm. He knows how to talk about his addiction and his recovery in an incredibly stupid way. And it's like, it just warms my heart.
He's very endearing, you know, and he brings the kind of chaos that I remember from early recovery, you know, like you're sober today, but, you know, you're back and forth, and he sort of brings that to the show.
I hope there's still I mean, what do you think? Mike, do you think the dumb shit, like what I mean, you listen to the show, it sounds like I mean, you think there's too much recovery in Dopey these days?
No. I like the recovery aspect of Dopey also because it's, it's a little glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
For people who are out there to hear, because these stories are all funny because of survival, right? Because people are telling them have made it through to the other side for the most part. So like when there are people on who are actively out there going balls to the wall who have no interest in stopping or anything, that makes me I get a little uncomfortable with that. I want a story arc where the survival is at the other end.
Oh,
you know
man.
what I mean?
It's crazy though. It's like when Chris died, it was like I got this crazy backlash for months. Like I think when Chris was alive, there was a pretty big population of people that were listening to the show. And like we would get emails about people like going to cop listening to Dopey.
Yeah.
And it was remarkable. Like we couldn't believe it, and we loved that. Like I would never in a million years listen to a podcast with two recovering drug addicts while I'm copping. In a million years, I would never fucking listen to that if I was using.
Right.
So I was like, part of me was like, we're doing something right. And then part of me is like, obviously those people are ambivalent about what they're doing in the moment. And after Chris died, it was like, and I see this sort of like, how like it takes light X amount of time to travel to the earth from the sun so that the light we're getting is actually
That's like 7 minutes old.
Yeah, it's old.
Yeah.
So like for months after Chris died, I got kind of hate mail from the part of the audience that was using.
Really?
That they felt like I turned my back on them. And it was really like, I also was traumatized.
Sure.
I was traumatized by Todd and Chris's death. We're working on this thing right now. This, there's a huge Time, Time magazine. They have a subsidiary called Time Documentaries, and they make gigantic TV shows and movies. And we're in development on a 3-part series about Dopey.
Awesome.
So, it's cool, but it's
really cool.
It's nothing if nothing happens. It's a cool story.
Nothing changes.
So I'm going through old episodes I'm like putting together, and it's so fucking crazy. It's like, this is your life. And I have that happen basically every time we do a show about Chris and every time we do a show about Todd. I'm like back in trying to find something new or something that speaks to me or something that I think will work. And so I just, Chris died in episode 142 and a half. He died after episode 142. Todd died, I think, in episode 138.
Yeah.
Like, so you're talking about like a month, 5 weeks apart. So like that shit fucked me up.
I wonder about that sometimes because, we were talking about this before you got here, like how people who just discover the podcast go back, listen from episode 1, get to the point where Chris dies, probably send you an email. Like, does that re-traumatize you all over again? Because but I mean, the flip side of that is it seems like the way you've dealt with Chris's death through the show is a very healthy way because it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah. And the week after you had that round table and that was amazing. Like I remember thinking like, wow. That was powerful. Yeah, you didn't just stop the show. You were like got the friends and family on. But yeah, like it's probably the healthiest way you could have processed it using the show.
I don't know what else I could do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like me and him had a really easy time making the show. Show wasn't always good, but we had a real easy time making it. Like it was not hard to do. And then when he died, like, I mean, it does traumatize me a little every time I deal with his death because it was so crazy, and I remember, and I was so blindsided by it, and then I was so invested in the show, you know what I mean? And my wife was like, "You can stop making it," and I was like, "I can't stop making it." And then like, the first episode, like when he died, like. I was going to do a 10-minute show, but then because I'm so invested in the show and because like I just lived to make it, I was like a 10-minute show isn't good. And then because I'm so invested in producing it and making it good or trying to make it good. And I had talked to Annie and she told me what had happened. I was like, would you tell that story on the show? And it was so powerful. You know what I mean? And part of me feels like P.T. Barnum and part of me feels like some kind of artist, you know what I mean? Like, and I think it's a mix, right? It's a mix of all those things. And, it's fucked up though, because I'm an opportunist based on this tragedy, but at the same time, I know that these people are invested in Chris's life and they want to hear what happened and they kind of need to. Yeah. And then like with the friends, I was going to the funeral in Boston and they invited me to stay with them. Those people that Chris had gotten sober with, that most of them had been on the show, those guys. And I was like, could we record a show? Again, is it opportunistic? Like, what is it?
I think it's grief. I think it's an expression of grief.
I felt weird about it. And also because I'm so insecure and so needing positive feedback, I'm like, was it good? And it's like all of us are grieving our dead friend. And I'm like, is this good for the show? It's kind of fucked up. You know what I mean?
I mean, what do you think Chris would have thought about you continuing? I mean, have you thought about that? He probably would have been. Listen, Chris loved Dopey. Yeah.
I think Chris would be. He would have loved to. He loved to be mentioned. You know, he loved to be mentioned so much that he loved it when I tore him apart because he loved the attention. And I mean, I was talking about this the other day because all these people that listen to the show, a lot of them have started over.
Yeah.
You know, I remember you started
I went back to one and started listening again just to re-traumatize myself.
But it's also like, it's
great.
good times.
Yeah.
Like, and I have a friend who's listening again and he was like, me and him were talking about Chris in general. And like this, I've known, obviously we're recovery in the Middle Ages.
That's
we're
right.
Middle-aged people in
Lean
recovery.
into your brand.
And we've known a lot of people over the years. And I've known a lot of people that were kind of like Chris, but they were much crazier or not as smart or not as easygoing. And Chris was just like, it was like the Goldilocks scenario for me and Dopey, meaning like he was so brilliant about so many things and he was so good-natured about me fucking with him that it just set up this dynamic. And if he had just been a little bit smarter or a little bit less open or a little bit more defensive, the show wouldn't have been good.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about how people, they're listening from the beginning and why one of the reasons people feel so close to you and to the show, it's because most of us went through that kind of, you know, by listening. And I think by having that show afterwards, I mean, people were grieving with you. And how many of us have had a friend pass away,
right.
overdose? So it's almost like it's like counseling in a way, you know, just by listening to it and getting through it. So I think it did a service, I think.
But there's also this funny, famous meme where it's like someone saying something to their mother and the mother is like, real friend or podcast host? You know? And I think that is a real thing. And then I also think like Chris's death was the beginning of that Dopey Nation group. Like that Dopey Nation Facebook group didn't exist. Me and Chris refused to do it before he died. And I think it was mostly because I was so insecure. I didn't want to read people liking him more than me.
Right. But you weren't doing shtick. You really didn't like it.
What?
That you like, they like him more than you. Like you had that little bit of competition.
Oh, I was terrified that people didn't like me and they liked him. You know what I mean? And it was, but that's like a built-in old school self-hating addict thing.
Yeah. It's definitely a challenge when you have like a Discord or you have a Facebook group or something to kind of get in there and see what people are saying about you and about the show.
Yeah.
And, you know, one place we got a little pushback lately is, you know, we've been pushing an ad on Facebook that's Addiction Comedy Podcast.
Yeah, that's one of my ads, yeah. And Addiction Recovery Comedy Podcast.
But I've gotten more than a handful of comments about people who are like, there's nothing funny about addiction. There's nothing
that's what
funny,
Jamie Lee Curtis said, yeah.
And, or, you know, it's funny for you guys to, you know, you laugh about it, but what about the families and the wreckage you've left in your wake and all this stuff? And I'm like, I'm like, well, maybe this isn't the show for you. You know,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to say when people come at me that way.
They don't
you know?
belong listening
Is
to
that
it.
ad very effective?
Yeah. it's a
So
good ad.
maybe we should do that
Addiction
too.
recovery comedy.
Maybe we should steal that ad from you.
I think my ads are too schlocky.
Slap
you
a
know,
Dopey
like,
thing on it and use
Every,
the same one.
every time I write copy for a Dopey ad or try to, it always comes out looking like a financial commercial. You know, it's
Well,
why
I think
like
we
to
should
stay
steal.
away
I think
from
I should steal your bit. I think.
addiction recovery comedy. Yeah.
Well, what was the question? I got.
Just kind of weird. Is there a line between comedy and tragedy in the addiction sphere that shouldn't be crossed?
Tragedy plus time is comedy.
yeah, for me, I don't. Luckily, I never hear that. You know,
Yeah.
I don't hear that. I think I heard it. I think Chris and I heard it a little bit in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. I remember in the very beginning, we would hear like, you shouldn't do that. Like, that's not the thing to do. But I don't know why. And I'm going to say, again, very egomaniacally, that because the show was good, that people didn't. I think that we covered the bases enough.
Yeah.
Like I would circle the wagon if I felt like I was not. I mean, every time I miss something, it blows up in my face. You know what I'm saying? Like if I miss something, it fucking blows up in my face. So I think we've done a good job in not laughing too. I think it also because Chris died and because Todd died and because all these people died, they know that I've been through it.
Yeah, like of course you're taking it seriously. And
Right.
the fact that you're,
I think that's built
joking.
in. I think that's built in.
Yeah, I think a lot of those comments are from people that have never listened
They
to
don't
us
get
and have
it.
no idea what the show is really all about.
that used to happen where like at my AA group when it's an anniversary, people who from outside the group will come and watch their loved one get their 1 year. And I've heard this comment in the past where they're like, they were uncomfortable with everybody joking about all these stories
Right.
that they remember they went through. Like they're the ones that found the guy, you know, and
Yeah.
brought him to rehab. It's not funny to them. But
Yeah, like my dad. My dad my dad is often on the fence. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
sure.
he just understands my sense of humor and really he loves comedy. He loves feeling good so much that even if it's from this horribly painful place, if the outcome is we're having a good time,
yeah.
he's okay. He
Right.
doesn't love it when I blame him for my heroin addiction and stuff like that. But I think that's like the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah, he knows you're shticking. He's great. He plays along, man. He's great.
But I don't know that I'm totally doing shtick.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it really
Yes.
funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite part because like obviously it can't be his fault that I'm a heroin addict, but it's my favorite. I can't wait to get back to that shtick again.
It was fun, and it was great seeing him at Dopey Con. He had a suit on, and he was just kind of like holding court, meeting everybody. Everybody loves Alan.
Yeah, totally.
It's interesting though with kind of try and roll that back a little bit because Nat and I talked early on in the show about a lot of you get this Gabor Mate idea that all of the all
I think
addiction
I
is
mispronounced his name for.
How do you pronounce it? Gay
I
boy?
say Gabor,
Gabor?
but I think you guys are right.
I wish I could ask him.
I don't know. I only ever read his name. I don't think I ever heard him pronounce it.
I would love. We have to find out.
I think
But
it's
anyway,
like Zsa Zsa Gabor.
what did he
Gabor.
say?
His whole theory is that addiction is rooted in trauma as a result of adverse childhood experiences.
Right.
And Nat and I were trying to swap adverse childhood experiences, and we weren't coming up with a whole lot, And from what I know of your story, there was nothing in your past. You weren't locked in a closet or beaten or anything, and any of that kind of stuff. And then it sort of gets a question is like, what are these minor things that we've interpreted as trauma? Do they even exist? Is that where addiction comes from? We've been trying to sort of tease that out for the whole.
Like, what is trauma? Like, most of the trauma I experienced was grammatical in nature. My father was constantly correcting my grammar my whole life. Is that really trauma? Because I'm not feeling accept, like that type of thing.
I don't think that, and this is with all due respect to you two and to me, I feel like we're not capable of defining trauma. And I've talked to Gabor Mate about it, and I've talked to Dr. Drew about it, and I've talked to all these people about it. And to be honest, I don't think anybody's capable of really defining trauma. I think the idea of trauma on a sliding scale makes the most sense to me because I'm sure you're going to find someone who was raped and didn't find it to be that traumatic, and you're going to find someone else who was called fat by their mother and did.
Right.
You know, it's like it's a thing. I mean, I don't know that somebody that's raped didn't find it traumatic either. It's a thing. It's one thing to the next. And like, where does addiction come from? I have no idea. You know, it's definitely multifaceted. It's like a fucking petri dish of shit. And like, you did, you know, I mean, for me, like, I was never a big drinker, but I know that the first time I drank to blackout. First time. And I really wasn't a big drinker, but that's odd. You know what I mean? I didn't have a big drinking career. First time I drank, I probably drank 20 screwdrivers and almost died.
Yeah. I mean, that was my experience with gin. The first time I ever put a bottle up to my lips, I drank half the bottle. But is that sort of self-archaeology important?
I don't know. I think I was sitting, you know, because my addiction history went from not being able to drink because I didn't like the way alcohol affected me to falling in love with weed and signing up to be a stoner, like 100%. Like, give me the clothes, give me the records.
You want the brand.
Yeah,
you want to
give me the literature.
There's your hacky sack and your Frisbee.
Yeah, I wanted the identity so much because of that underlying not comfortable in my skin, not to mention weed hit my brain exactly the way I wanted it to be hit. The music hit my ears the way I wanted it to be hit. The writing, the defiance, the immaturity, all of those things were my perfect shit. And then it went from weed to psychedelics, and then it went from weed and psychedelics to pills, and then it went from weed, psychedelics, and pills to coke, and then to heroin, and then heroin really did for me what I wanted, which was to not care. And then, heroin is physically addictive. Yeah. And so I'm making money, and all of a sudden I'm full blown. And then I'm full blown, and I'm like, I'm making money. I'm like, I'm going to stick with this. And then it was like, when I would try to stop, it was too uncomfortable and it was too painful. And I just didn't want to stop.
But that was you like 10 years ago. Someone was asking me about this. Like, don't you feel like you're a different person? Like, do you really believe, like, with all your heart, that if you started smoking a joint every day, that you would descend into chaos and heroin addiction? Even now, after all the growth you've done, all the maturing, do you really feel like you would be that out of control? Is it important that you feel that
it's
way?
It's not even relevant to me if that's the outcome or not. The outcome for me is I couldn't do what I'm doing now if I smoked a joint every day. And if I smoked a joint every day, I wouldn't smoke a joint every day. I would be like, I'd smoke a joint and then be like, you know what I really like to do is take bong hits. And then what I could do, like in my last iteration of using, I wasn't like waking up and smoking weed. I would go work, and when I got home from work, I would take 3 bong hits. Then I would go buy food and cook, and then I would take 3 more bong hits. And then I started dating some girl who sold pills. So like a couple days a month, I would take pills. Yeah. And then I really liked how the Percocets hit, and I was like, this kind of reminds me of heroin. I think I could do heroin one more time.
That's dangerous.
And I did it one more time. And I didn't do it again. Yeah. I did it. I mean, the last time I did heroin was probably 10 years ago. And I've also read that, you know, with cellular regeneration, every 7 years, you're kind of regenerating all your cells anyway. So am I the same person? Definitely not. And I do have a major reservation for being a stoner again.
Yeah, you always talk about that. You're going to sit on your porch. You're going to listen to the Allman Brothers. And I'm like, I want that for you in a certain sense. I'm like, I hope that Dave makes it to that porch at some point. You know, I want you to like, you know, and do it safely and be happy about it. But that's like a false goal, you know? Like, I mean, isn't the trick really want that?
Isn't the trick to get to the point where that sort of fantasy holds no appeal to you anymore?
I don't know.
That's kind of where I'm kind of landing.
You don't romanticize having a glass of Cabernet.
I mean, it was easy enough for me to not romanticize the crack days because the evidence, the evidence of what happens when you go down that road is so crystal clear. Yeah. Like, even a moron like me could figure that out. But when it comes to like, oh, maybe I could have a glass of wine sitting on the porch or something, or smoke, do a couple bong rips or something, I just, I don't feel like that's something I want to do anymore.
I don't want to do it now.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to do it now. And maybe it's like that one day at a time kind of thing where you put enough one days at a time together and all of a sudden you're not doing it.
Yeah.
I have the fantasy, and also smoking cigarettes are in the fantasy of
Why not?
Of being old. I don't have a fantasy of shooting heroin again.
No.
And I don't have a fantasy of eating anti-anxiety medication because that shit is just so debilitating and it's so habitual and crazy. But smoking pot, it's just, and I don't crave weed. I just crave to be an old man with a porch and a rocking chair and a record player and sitting there and smoking weed. And it's like, it's also like a joke. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know, like I'm 48 years old. I don't want to do it today. I don't want to do it until I'm not working. I don't want to do it with children. Like I want to do it when I'm old and then maybe not even like it. But I don't know why that's still a thing. I'm coming up on 8 years sober this year.
Awesome.
And I'm thrilled. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like my life is, I have the whole thing. You know what I mean? I have a loving family. I've got a nice house. I love my work for the most part. I'm a happy person and I owe it all to not using. But I still have a little bit of a fantasy about being an old stoner.
Right.
But doesn't Dopey, I've heard you say on the show, and I've definitely taken exception to this comment, where you always will say, Dopey is not how I stay sober. It's not how I get sober. But I'm always thinking, like, how could you possibly say that Dopey doesn't help you stay sober? Like, it's that you don't want to give it that power over your sobriety? Or do you really believe that doing the show doesn't help keep you sober?
I don't think I say it doesn't help. I think it doesn't keep me sober. I think, of course, it helps.
Like, there's other things, but
well,
the show's
I mean,
just supporting.
It's also like, I say a lot of stuff that might not be true. You know what I mean? I say that I don't think Dopey helps people. I say that Dopey doesn't keep me sober. I mean, this is the fact. I got sober in 2015 in August. We started making Dopey in October of 2015. I've been sober making Dopey for 98% of my recovery. I'm sure it didn't hurt. You know what I mean? Like, and I talk about recovery. I think I would talk about, put it like this, right? I have a group of friends that I do 12-step with, and they don't know anything about Dopey. I don't talk to them about Dopey at all, but I talk to them about recovery every day. Right. And it has nothing to do with Dopey. It's just recovery talk. So it's like, I don't talk dope. Nobody at my meeting knows what Dopey is. It's not a thing. I'm not like a celebrity at the meeting.
You don't kind of stroll in and
no. I just wear cats and stuff. You know what I mean?
Hand out stickers. And
no,
stuff.
I don't do any of it. I always think that I'm going to go to an AA meeting and people are like, oh, yeah, it's Dave from
it's like 20 more downloads, right? You know, you're not thinking like you're talking to everybody. It's like 20 downloads right here.
But I don't want to do that. I don't want to self-promote in that kind of way. Although, you want to hear the greatest story in the history of the show?
Yes, please.
Of course.
Maybe top 10 story. Every meeting I go to, I pretend that I'm Mark Maron or you know, famous person at the meeting, and everyone's like, and yeah, they're, of course, if they're in recovery, they're fans of the show, which is totally not true. Like I've rarely encountered, I don't think I've met one person randomly that knew what the show was. I don't think one time.
Really?
I don't think it's ever happened.
Huh.
So except this one time, I'm at a meeting in Manhattan at NYU. It's like a noon meeting. It was NYU University, but is Now You Understand was the
okay. I like it.
And I'm in there and I'm sharing. It's an AA meeting. And I shouldn't disclose that I'm a member of AA because that breaks tradition. Let's call it a 12-step meeting.
12-step.
And so I share, right, and I'm leaving, and I share about like my life. I think I shared about just having moved, and maybe I shared about Chris dying. Like it was right around then. And I'm leaving, and the secretary of the meeting is this young woman who's attractive. And she goes, "Are you Dave?" And I went, "Yeah." And then she points to her leg, and she has the Dopey tattoo.
Oh yeah.
And we paid,
sick.
but we had paid for her tattoo.
Wow.
So it was just one of those kind of. Her name is Hannah, and she actually played Good So Bad on the street in Bleecker Street and put it on YouTube and like.
Oh, cool.
You know, she was like this major Dopey fan, and she was the secretary of that meeting. So that was fucking crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The whole idea of having a Dopey tattoo, like that must totally fuck with your head. Like, is it the ultimate compliment?
Oh, I mean, I don't have any tattoos, so I feel kind of like a hypocrite, but it's my favorite. There's somebody out there who has "I want to be good so bad" tattooed across their wrists.
It's amazing.
That's like my favorite.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And somebody has "Forever and Dead" on their arm. There's a lot of dopey tattoos out there.
Pretty cool.
It's
man.
wild. It's crazy.
Yeah, our audience doesn't get tattoos. I don't think we've got mostly 40 to 60 somethings.
Dopey is far and wide. I mean, I was at a business meeting in Savannah, Georgia this past spring, and the first thing I saw, I go out for a run when I get into town, is a Dopey sticker on a light post.
That's crazy. See, I don't even get to see that. I don't see that.
I tweeted it at you.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah,
it's like I wasn't as accomplished a musician as Nat, but I played in bands and stuff, and all I wanted to be was in a famous band, and Dopey is my band now.
Yeah, I love that when you said that, like the idea that this is your band, like the way that we used to think of bands. It's like perfect.
Well, it's like the guy who owns Katz's, right? Like I mostly wear a Katz's shirt every day.
Right.
And I'm standing with him on the corner, and some guy walks past with a Wilco shirt on. And I was like, dude, I was like, what do you think? And I was like, is your band bigger than his? Because so many people wear Katz's clothes, and he laughed because he doesn't care about having a band. I care about having a band,
right?
It's my, and I'm like a fame whore. Like, I want Dopey to be a big famous show. I want it to somehow be more mainstream. I want it to be Marin for Recovery or Joe Rogan or something, and I don't know how to get there.
Yeah. That's something we talk about all the time. Like, for Dopey, like, how do we get past this niche? How do we get, bigger, broader appeal? And
I don't know if you can.
I think to some degree you're hemmed in a little bit by the topic, by your subject matter, right?
For sure.
I mean, it's just, but it's big. There's a lot of people who are in recovery or are struggling,
Yeah, and it's getting bigger and bigger as people talk about it, as celebrities get sober. It's like sober's the new black, so the audience is just going to grow.
That's an Instagram page. Sober's the new.
Oh, it is?
I resent them too.
Sorry.
How did you get into the Grateful Dead? Just to switch gears. Since I'm the biggest Deadhead in the world.
He's a pretty big Deadhead. I know Fire.
I love the Dopey focus on the Dead. Sometimes I was see from my perspective, you put Steve Parrish in the Patreon. I'm like, that should have been a main.
I think we released it.
Did you?
I think we put it as a bonus. He was a dick.
Oh, was he? Yeah. Well, he had that reputation back in the day.
He treated me like an asshole.
Did he really?
I mean, you didn't think so in the interview?
Yeah, he was. But I think that's kind of the way he is.
Yeah, he was not warm.
That was just on Patreon, right? Did you?
No, I think I put it out.
That was a good. Yeah.
This is the thing. I think Big Steve Parrish, just to be clear, if you want to talk about it, like, I think because he smokes weed, I think he feels defensive about the idea of sobriety, about a pothead who doesn't smoke weed. I think that fucks him up. So I think he approached me prickly because I'm a pothead who doesn't smoke weed.
Well, he sells weed. I mean, he has he has a brand.
God bless him. And I wish I was smoking weed with Big Steve Parrish. It just didn't work out for me in the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah.
In terms of the Dead, like, I was not into the Grateful Dead. I mean, and this is funny because, like, I don't know about you guys. I trace a lot of my thinking to my 17-year-old self.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And my 17-year-old self was not interested in the Grateful Dead.
Oh, interesting.
I grew up in Manhattan. It's so funny because I didn't know that I was such a nerd that I actually was. Like, I was in a ska band. I played harmonica in a ska band without knowing how nerdy the whole thing actually was. And I thought it was cool. Like,
that's badass, man, playing harmonica in a ska band.
I thought it was really cool.
I must be a nerd too.
I was interested in hip hop music, and I wasn't interested in suburban Grateful Dead. I wasn't interested in alternative music, and I regret this. This is stuff that I regret. I wasn't interested in Jane's Addiction and Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins, and I wasn't interested in the Grateful Dead. I was interested in the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the phenomenon of the 60s. And then my friend Devin went to a Dead show, and I was like, "You're such a fucking poser going to a Dead show." And he was like, "I don't know." He's like, "It was pretty crazy." And I was like, "Okay." And I was 17. I was like, "Let's go." And me and Devin, I hadn't smoked pot. I had just blackout drank one time, and I was like, "Let's go." And me and Devin went to see the Grateful Dead in 1991 at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
and everyone's talking about LSD. Like I just hear everyone LSD, acid doses, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, let's get LSD. And I can't even believe that I had that thought. Because, I mean, like fast forward, I'm this horrible drug addict with a recovery podcast. But at the time I wasn't like that. And he was like, okay. And we bought a couple white blotters off some fucking hippie, and we tripped out and we wandered around. I don't think I even noticed the Grateful Dead playing.
Had a few of those shows.
I kept saying to Devin, we're in the festival. It's the festival. And then I kind of like didn't revisit, and I'm giving you the long story because I like talking about the Grateful Dead. And then I would hang out at my friend's house and he would listen to Skeletons in the Closet. And there was a version of Turn On Your Love Light on there, and we would play NBA jams. And I found when he would play Turn On Your Love Light and I played NBA jams and Jerry would go off in the solo sections of that song, I would fucking be unstoppable.
I'm on fire.
And NBA jams. I would steal the ball every time he came up. I was like, dun, 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 and Jerry fucking went nuts in that song. And then I would hear like the harmonies on Uncle John's Band or Broke Down Palace, and I was like, And then Two from the Vault came out pretty close after that. And the packaging was so beautiful on Two from the Vault. It was one of those old CDs that was a big paper CD.
It's when you have stoners putting all that stuff together, it really appeals to other stoners.
Yeah, they make it on purpose.
The whole trick, rather. Yeah.
The Dead shows are like drug addict. Like I've never been to a Grateful Dead show. When I was 16 and 17, I was into Nine Inch Nails. I was into like the Prodigy, electronic, all that stuff, and I loved acid. But I didn't know that I knew about the Grateful Dead because there was Deadheads, but I was kind of scoffed at it. But now, like, I kind of wish, like, that I was into it because it sounds like drug addict Disneyland.
Well, it was. I mean, I started going to shows in 1985 before the Touch of Grey thing hit. And so back then it was still considered really subversive and counterculture-y to be into that. And then when 87 came and all the frat boys rushed in, all of a sudden, like, people thought of it as like just a bunch of white guys from Connecticut.
Yeah,
yuppies. Those are the people
Dirty
who go
white
to
hats.
see the Dead. But I liked the drugs. I enjoyed them very much. But
the music isn't bad either.
Music is fantastic.
I've been trying to catch up, because you always talk about the Dead,
man.
So I've been trying.
But I really enjoyed your interview with Mountain Girl. That was awesome.
Me too.
How did you just reach out to her and she was like,
no.
Sure, let's do it?
No, I fell in love with Jerry Garcia. From Two from the Vault, I fell in love with Jerry Garcia, and then I just dove in, and I was so interested in the culture around the Dead. I just had such an issue with Bob Weir that I couldn't be all in. I was just so invested with Jerry, and I was also just the story of the Merry Pranksters, the story of Ken Kesey, the story of the connection between, Neil Cassidy and Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, and how that goes into the Grateful Dead. I was so interested in that story.
Cool. It's an incredible mythology.
Yeah, I was just so invested in that. I remember reading the Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test and seeing Jerry Garcia show up, and I was like, whoa. And I think that really pushed the Grateful Dead boulder up the hill a bit for me. But there's this guy, basically it happened through Ryan Leone roundabout. Ryan Leone.
Sad story.
Yeah, horrible story. He's a horrible drug addict. Did a bunch of time in jail, wrote a novel in jail.
Wasting Talent or Wasted Talent.
Wasting
Great
Talent.
Book.
Yeah, it's a wild book.
Yeah, I like it.
And he was friends with another writer named Seth Ferranti. Seth Ferranti got busted with, I think, 20,000 hits, on Dead Tour.
Yeah.
And he came on Dopey.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like an outlaw episode of Dopey. He's not in recovery, but he is friends with Mountain Girl. And Mountain Girl is writing a memoir, and somehow Ferranti is connected, and he connected me to them.
Oh, cool.
And they were on the fence, and I sent them a box of Katz's, and they agreed to do it.
Nothing works like pastrami.
I know.
Yeah, I was trying to claw my way into that scene to grab somebody like bigger through.
You got Rich
Jesse Jarno. Yeah.
Is he sober?
No, I mean he's Mr. Psychedelia. I wanted to talk to him about his book, which was called Heads, which he always plugs on the Grateful Dead podcast. Like, oh, if you want to hear more about this kind of thing, check out my audiobook Heads. So I listened to it, and it was basically, you'd probably love it. It's a history of psychedelics in America from the late 50s all the way through to the present day, all about how the Brotherhood of Eternal Light and the acid distribution across the country and the dead and fish and everything. And no recovery angle, but I just wanted to talk to him. So I sent him an email and was kind of like telling him what we were about, and he was really into coming on. And then I didn't ask him a single question about recovery. I just wanted to talk to him about acid for like an hour and a half. I get done with it, and he's like, you really didn't ask me much about recovery. So we went back and recorded a bit about the wharf rats, and then I kind of spliced that in later.
But he's not sober.
I don't think so.
Jesse.
No.
And I think, I've messaged him. He doesn't write me back. And I think that, so kudos to you. I think the good old Grateful Dead cast, might be the greatest podcast ever made.
Agree 100%.
But it's dipping.
The storytelling is amazing.
You know when I lost it? When he put out the fucking 50th anniversary of Ace, followed by another Bob Weir show. It's I can't. I just can't.
Bobby's an incredible rhythm guitar player. I mean, you ever listen to some of his isolated stuff? It's amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's just like my favorite shit that Mountain Girl wanted to jump on. I don't know if you noticed when Jerry and Phil wanted to kick Bobby out. And I think Mountain Girl got really interested in talking about that. Yeah. I also think she's kind of like she's so pushed out. And she was a merry prankster. She was a seminal member of that community, and she was not in the Grateful Dead. And I think that fucked her up,
I think it did, and I think the treatment at the hands of Debbie Coons,
the whole thing, they're selling. I mean, I hate to be in the know. I hate to be.
You guys know a lot about the Grateful Dead. Can I just say that?
I'm sorry.
It's amazing. Well, it sounds very interesting.
I just saw a thing on Facebook, like now they're selling Grateful Dead clothes at Walmart made in China.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just one of those, it's just like,
the Grateful Dead has been like that since I remember, though. I was always like, oh, they're just a big brand, but.
I want Dopey to be like Chinese made, fucking sold in Walmart.
It's going to happen.
That's what I want.
But you're taking a different route, though. You're starting this. I wanted you to talk a little bit before you go, because what time is it? I wanted you to talk about your the nonprofit. This is kind of a big deal, and I feel like you haven't really been pushing it.
That's because I haven't developed it yet.
What's happening with that?
Nothing.
I think it's a great idea.
Nothing's happening. Well, no. What's happened? The only thing that's happening is I just got a bunch of Narcan and fentanyl test strips that I'm sending out to people who want it.
That's good.
That's great.
That's a start.
It's hard. The Dopey Foundation is a dream. I don't really know what to put in place to make it effective. The vision is basically, because Dopey is this very unpretentious place where addicts connect and some get to help each other, and alcoholics too, and they get to help each other. I want the Dopey Foundation. I don't want Dopey to have to do heavy lifting in terms of helping people. I want Dopey to be free to be
because it's
Dopey.
What it does just as it is. It helps people just by existing.
But I just want it to be unencumbered, to not have to serve the purpose of helping. But then, because everyone's like, oh, your show helps so many people. And I'm like, not really. I want to act, if we have the opportunity.
I think it does.
It has
whether you want to admit it or not. I mean,
how could it not?
Yeah.
How could it not help people?
We have the opportunity to set up a foundation that helps people specifically. And like the way we do it is trying to emulate a lot of what the Dopey Nation does and put people together. I want to set up grief counseling for people who have lost people. I want to send more people to treatment. But we sent probably...
We've been doing that since
I
forever.
know, but the thing about sending people to treatment is addicts are fucking addicts.
Yeah,
and
they'll relapse.
They bounce out of treatment and die. And it's like, it's just such a fucking horror show to be a part of. It's hard. Yeah. I mean, like, okay.
Send them to Oro.
Yes.
Wow.
Equine therapy.
That's a whole thing.
I mean, we interviewed Evan Haynes. Amazing.
Oh, thank
you. He's
brilliant.
Guy. He's brilliant.
That book that he wrote, Can America Recover?
Very
I actually
dense.
read the whole thing.
You did?
Yeah, it took me like months.
I read through most.
He's very smart.
Yeah.
He's a very smart guy.
He is.
But so this week, right, we get there's this couple, right? These fucking addicts. God bless them. Courtney and Sean. Okay. Courtney's been listening to Dopey like since we started, but she's kind of on the periphery. I don't know who Sean is. and Sean's using fentanyl, and Courtney is relapsing on something, and Courtney is like, Dave, I need to talk to you on the phone. And I'm like, no, you don't. And she's like, Dave, I need to tell you some stories. And I'm like, well, send in a voicemail. And she sent in this crazy, scary voicemail that was 30 seconds. That was like, I got high and then I got raped. Is that the voicemail you want to hear, Dave?
Yikes.
And I'm like, no. I'm like, you're scaring me. That's what I wrote. I was like, these voicemails are scaring me. And I keep pushing her off. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with this, you know? And then on Sunday morning, I get a message that Sean is dead, that he overdosed, and she's hysterical, crying and driving behind the ambulance, but the lights aren't turned on, and that's how she knows he's dead. That she did CPR on Sean, and she heard the death rattle, and I was like, Courtney, did you hang out in the hospital and actually hear that he's dead? And she said no, and I was like, hang out at the hospital and actually hear he's dead before you've decided that he's dead. She's like, he's dead, and I'm like, I'm sorry. And I go to my meeting and I share about how lucky we are to be alive. And when I get home, I get the message that Sean didn't die. And then I got a voicemail from Sean that I haven't been able to listen to yet. But it's heavy duty, you know, and it's hard, you know. And I want the Dopey Foundation to be effective, but the fact of the matter is, as we know, I don't think there is an effective way to treat addiction.
No. We talk about this all the time. We're trying to get, I call it the unified field theory of recovery. I don't know that there's such a thing. I mean, we can't really even define, if you can't define what it is, how can you define?
How can you make it happen? You can't, because it requires all sorts of things. But the thing that it requires in you or in me is that we're ready. And I wasn't ready until I got sober. I was not ready at all. There was nothing you could have done, I don't think.
No.
Before I was ready.
Yeah.
So
you have to be ready. But then the treatment after that is, I kind of look at it like gene therapy for cancer, you know, a little different for each person, depending on the circumstance. I don't think there's a one size fits all.
Which makes it extremely difficult to treat, though. You know, like, how do you, like, you can't treat like a stay-at-home mom who drinks 2 glasses of wine a day and it's sort of wrecking her marriage, and you treat her next to
Sean, the fentanyl.
Like, how do you put the same program on the two of them? It's not going to work.
But I think that the ultimate thing is you leave the door open for everybody, and you give everybody respect and as much love as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And show them that. I mean, the thing about drugs and alcohol is it's very rare that you can have sustained happiness, joy, optimism, and a good life while participating in them.
Yes, I would argue it's impossible.
Right. So, like, if you can offer somebody who's in that mire something better where they see that it worked for you, that's the best we can do.
Yeah, and nobody's trauma is more valid than the next person's.
My trauma is less valid than the next person.
You know.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
is that a good place to end it?
I think it might be. Did you want to thank you for coming on the show, Dave.
Yeah. I hope I didn't lose Action Bronson and my job, but it was and my car, but it was worth it.
Well, Action Bronson's not coming on Dope. I guess he's not an addict.
It's interesting. Action Bronson wants to do an event with Katz's. And then it was funny because I met with him with a friend of mine who did The Last Jewish Waiter with me.
Right.
And he starts talking to Action Bronson about Dopey. I'm like, shh. And Action Bronson goes, you really shouldn't have brought that up at the first meeting.
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't going to. It's Ivan.
I'm sure he'll call back. He's got the pastrami waiting for him. I'm sure he'll call back.
We'll see.
Pastrami.
We'll see.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Dave, I hope you make it back home okay. And thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And the beat I hear, it gets me out of bed. And